Welcome to our series of 6 podcasts on the occasion of the 60th anniversary of Nepal UNDP cooperation. In this edition, we'll be looking at the financing Nepal's development ambitions, what we've learned from our work over the past few decades, but also the bottlenecks that need to be addressed, the things we need to do a bit differently in the coming months and years. So that we realize the ambitions of the people of Nepal for more economic opportunities, more jobs, and a more equal, also resilient and fair society. So I'm very pleased to be joined on this podcast by 3 people whose organizations have a major role to play in unlocking financing for Nepal's development. Dr. Dhaniram Sharma, the Joint Secretary of the International Economic Relations Division at the Ministry of Finance. Mrs. Smriti Sharma, Vice President of the Nepal Infrastructure Bank, NIFRA. And Mr. Arnaud Heckmann, the Head of Operations for the Nepal Resident Mission of the Asian Development Bank, ADB. So just to get us started and to set the scene a little bit, first, the story of Nepal's development is a story of significant progress. I was looking back at the figures from the 60s when UNDP started operating in Nepal. GDP has grown about 20-fold in that time period. Looking at the Human Development Index, which UNDP has been publishing globally since 1990, and Nepal has almost made 60% progress on these various indicators of the Human Development Index. So it's a positive story, and that's slightly better than the sub-regional average for South Asia. And also, as we all know, Nepal is set to graduate very soon from the least developed country category, so of the UN. But we've seen also in the recent electoral period that there's a strong sense that Nepal, within Nepal and also within the diaspora, Nepali people abroad, that there's potential to do more. Nepal has many assets, an incredible tourism brand, the mountains, cultural, spiritual, also skilled people who don't always find opportunities in Nepal, and people with a very entrepreneurial spirit who want to take Nepal forward. So looking at the financing side of this, I think for our conversation today, it's about how do we get finance to those who will contribute to Nepal's growth, the entrepreneurs, the SMEs, the farmers, but also financing for those core public or public-private investments that are needed in infrastructure, in education and skills, those core investments that form the basis of any functioning and performing economy. So this is what I'd like to explore with you over the next 30 minutes. Just a couple more words from my side, in terms of the financing landscape. So government revenue has grown quite significantly over the past 15 years. I was checking the figures. It's grown about fourfold in terms of the revenue of government. We are now near 1 trillion rupees, I think, in revenue. There's a lot of liquidity in the banking sector and the finance sector, around 800 billion, and debt levels are relatively low. Debt servicing, the cost is increasing, but compared to many countries, Nepal has relatively low debt levels, around 45% or slightly less. But if we look at international finance, the story is slightly more mixed. ODA globally, we know, has been declining. In Nepal is still in a better position than many countries. There's still quite a bit of financing available. I think both Dhaniram and Arnaud can speak to that. But it's a smaller portion of the financing landscape, of course, because the economy is growing and the role of private finance is more and more important, but it's still very catalytic and to de-risk investments from others. We know that one of the key issues is in Nepal is to attract foreign direct investment, FDI. It's very, very low, around 0.1% of GDP, which is, just by way of comparison, it's about 5 times less than some of the neighbors if we take Pakistan or Sri Lanka, for example. And the final point I wanted to make and to put on the table for you is the fact that we live in very uncertain times. We've seen all these shocks, health, pandemic, climate change, geopolitical shocks. So there's really, and we know that investors, especially when they want to invest in developing countries, can be very risk averse. So I think one key question is how do we de-risk those investments so that the money comes to Nepal and to the people who need it. So it was a bit of a long introduction, but just to set the scene and maybe generate some ideas for our conversation. So now let's jump straight into it. I think the first point where I wanted to get your views is on where you see the key bottlenecks to unlock this potential for financing to flow to the right people and to the right investments. And maybe I'd like to start with you, Dhaniram, to give us a sense from the Ministry of Finance of where you see those bottlenecks.
Thank you so much, Julien. When we talk about issues or bottlenecks in unlocking development finance, I would highlight 3 key bottlenecks. The first one is implementation challenges in Nepal's development financing. Even resource is available, but the public, particularly public investments, public projects, they are facing problems. A lot of delays in execution and preparation, also execution of the projects. And second issue is now governance. This is another issue that is now well discussed. Even if you look at the new context of political change in Nepal, the ruling party, the new government is really focusing on this governance issue because of some complexities in bureaucracy, different various layers in the decision-making process. Working in there is lack of digitalization in the process, lack of interagency coordination. So governance issue is one of the problems that is also hindering in delivering this development finance mobilization. And third issue, of course, innovation, mobilizing new capitals, new kind of private capital in development projects. So I think 3 are the key, not bottlenecks, but we need to unlock those issues.
Mm-hmm. Who wants to jump in? Does this resonate with you?
Yes. In addition to Mr. Dhaniram sir's vision and his ideas, even while I was with NIFRA, I was with the Nepal Infrastructure Bank, and as a private investors, what my opinion is the pipeline gap. First thing, right? We should prioritize what are the projects first, and what should be done by the private sector or by the government itself. So we have that pipeline gap is always there because we need the pipeline that is bankable and investment ready, right? But who will going to put their efforts to make that pipeline? So that's the challenge for us as a private sector. So another thing is procurement and implementation process is there. It's still there, but there are some institutional and legal bottlenecks are there. But how to collaborate and how to connecting the dots, that's very important. And I think that's the main bottleneck in our country. And mismatching financing, that's the tenor is also important because we are envisioned for long-term projects here in Nepal.
I know this resonates with you. ADB is facing the same type of challenges.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm very happy to be here also. It resonates a lot actually with Dhaniram. We are facing the same challenges. But first, let me say, of course, Nepal development has been staggering, right? There is a lot of improvement. But I think now we are reaching a bottleneck where all the issues that Dhaniram sir mentioned are really the main constraint of development finance for service and infrastructure. Let me add also all the law and regulations. So many acts, so many law, Land Acquisition Act, Procurement Act are still pending. Right? So this legal also ecosystem needs to be solved quickly. And as you mentioned, it's not only about investment in infrastructure, it's private sector, it's communities. Private sector, what they want, predictability, right? And one of the issue, just to add, I am fully agree with what has been said, but also the change the constant change in the staff, in the government, in the regulation, etc. So these do not create a conducive environment for the private sector. So at the federal level, at the local level, this stability is extremely important for the private sector. All the readiness issue, all the planning, all the bottleneck we have for implementation, this is our daily life, this is what we face. I will add also poor quality of contractor, poor quality of consultants, which are making not things, going in a right way. And then on planning side is what you mentioned. I think we are still looking at, project by project, where I need a road here, so we need to have a better grand plan, actually, to be able to create the synergies and the cumulative impact of finance. And of course, how we reach the communities is so very important, how we do the last mile to make sure that they benefit also. So many things to say, but let me finish by this one is the vulnerability of Nepal also. It's a young country in terms of geography, right? So the topography is very vulnerable to climate change. So how we put that in consideration, how we de-risk that for the private sector or for the infrastructure is also one of the key aspects.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, I think we can move. You've alluded to some of this in your initial statements. I think we can move to what do we need to do differently. So, for example, you mentioned the demand and the supply side, right? So, in that pipeline. That pipeline issue. Do we need to invest a bit more in helping people to come up with bankable projects, whether it's in the public sector or the private sector? Do you have any thoughts about that? How we can do that, or if it's already been done and needs to be scaled up?
Yes, Julien. In that case, I think we have to go to strategic transitioning, right? With reforms, with different reforms, like in legal reforms, in other policy reforms, and so on. So we have to go on that way. So we have to take that strategic direction first. How we can create that pipeline, and so that can be bankable, so that we can onboard the private sector. Because there are always the scarcity of budget in different layers of government here in Nepal, in 3 tiers of government, and the local empowerment, because there's the demand at the local level. So how to empower the local people in this kind of structuring, that is very much important. So we can think in that way. And the project prioritization and the project readiness, we have to first look upon on that. Yeah.
Maybe if we can stay on that issue of the pipeline, how do you see it from the Ministry of Finance side? Maybe both on the public sector side, how can we get better quality pipeline, but also how do you see that on the private sector?
Yeah, this is I think one of the major issue, whether we have strong pipeline for mobilizing this private capital or not. Not only private capital, even the public investment. Sometime when we talk about the large projects, I always ask people that whether we have pipeline or not. So there is no pipeline, and we have project bank, but project bank is just only the list of the projects. But if we really want to have some strategic projects, the government should also have its own pipeline for public investment as well.
From our side, one of the things we see also in terms of what to do, maybe a bit differently, we see that a number of products. Arnaud was talking about the vulnerabilities of the country, climate change, etc. We see a number of products which are there, for example, guarantees or insurance, but the take-up has not been amazing. So sometimes there's a feeling that there's a disconnect between some of the products that have been designed or some of the regulations that are in place and the needs of the market. I don't know if any of you would like to comment on that. Do you see that also in your work, or I don't know, maybe from NIFRA or from ADB, you're the bankers around the table. Do you also see sometimes that some of these products, or maybe the quality of the dialogue between private sector, financing institutions, and the public sector needs to be improved so that we get to products that are more responsive to the needs of the market? Do you see that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, for ADB, we don't have the range of financing instruments that NIFRA have. We are very, straightforward. So we try to have more and more. But I think we need to be bold and we need to be really transformative here. What you mentioned is exactly true. there is a difficulty of communicating in public and private, sector. We try to make things, going together, but the language, the mentality is very different. So how we put these two different type of environment together? And for us, this is the main issue, how we integrate the private sector in our operations. So we have a private sector, of course, department. We have public sector department, but we have difficulties to put them together. So we need to find some transformative idea to develop, and it goes to the pipeline we need. Not seeing again one project, but be more programmatic and see what will be the role of one specific project into a program. And the program should have a very clear objective. For example, job creation, which is the priority of the government. This is in our CPS also. So job creation, how you put those forces together to arrive to one goal or some economic driver, etc. So it's very easy to say. So it requires thinking and stepping back. But if I may, I think with this new government, there is an opening, right? Because we have put in place we have been working, very closely together with the government. So the pieces are there. We just need to push them strongly and use this new government ready for reform and actions to create the momentum.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe unless any of you want to add anything on some of the things we still need to do a bit differently, but otherwise I think we can move also to what our individual organizations have in mind for the next few months and years. So we all know that of course the top agenda for the government, as Arnaud mentioned it, and in the country program strategy of ADB, in the UN Development Cooperation Framework, jobs are there at the center. And we have an opportunity with, a majority government. The possibility for legislative reform is much easier than in a coalition environment. So what are the things that your individual organizations have in mind for the next few months or the next couple of years? Let's say the top one or two things you would like to do in this new environment. Maybe Sriti.
Yeah, for this, even the financing instruments to deployed in future, because all the we can see all we are going to the green journey, right? So we can deploy it with some kind of climate and any kind of green instruments. Like we are there with one instrument here in Nepal that was green energy bond. It was overly subscribed like 4 times because most of the people and institutions, they want to create this kind of economy, right, all over the world. So even in Nepal, we get that kind of filler from the domestic market as well. So we can go with this kind of green thematic bonds for financing sector. But what about the demand side? Right? So we can go hand in hand with those project pipeline. I mean to say the bankable one, not the just for the creating the pipeline and without doing anything. That's I think that's not be doable for all of us.
So Ministry Finance, this is, as a budget institutions, we have started our new budget formulation, and our finance minister told that upcoming budget will be the historical for economic reform, for development, for quality infrastructure, for promoting investment. So this is his announcement publicly. So we are working on it. In terms of legal reform, we are seeing 2 types of legal reform. One is the legal mechanism that is related to development related projects, facilitation like Forest Act, Environment Conservation Act, Land Acquisition Act. Those acts should be amended, should be reformed. So we are seeing what are the mismatches between those laws, among those laws, and perhaps we'll declare before budget or during the budget we'll announce some legal reform in terms of those development related laws. And second, regarding the investment promotion, we will also announce some legal reform in FITA, also in Industry Enterprise Act. We'll also announce for new reform, for example, new laws, for example, Industrial Property Rights Act, which is the old one, and we Previously also we submitted the bill, and now again we should start a new process. And also some other laws like Insolvency Act, like Company Act. There are a lot of mismatches. So we'll announce some legal reform in those areas. So we are really working on it. How can we have some amendment in those areas? And second, another issue is reforming regulatory mechanisms. And what I'm seeing that our regulators are focusing more on the traditional way of regulation. It doesn't work. If you really want to have some innovation in private capital mobilization, so how can we have this reform in regulatory mechanism? This is another issue of reform.
It's a very exciting time with this ambitious economic reform agenda. And the reforms you mentioned also include some specific measures to attract foreign direct investments.
Yes, we are also discussing the FITA Act, though we have already had an amendment in FITA, but Act itself is okay, but there are some regulations, directives issued by the Nepal Infrastructure Bank. So there should be also change in these regulations, etc. Also, so we'll work on it.
Okay. And for you, Arnaud, for ADB, what does the near future look like? What are the 1-2 top instruments or initiatives that you would like to move forward?
Yeah. Okay. So at first we want to be very pragmatic. As it was discussed, first we need to address the issue of implementation of projects, right? So we are supporting the governments in many actions, the digitalization of forest clearance, introducing merit point criteria for a better quality contractor. I can go on. There is a list of initiatives, very pragmatic, because infrastructure investment is still critical. There is still a lot of infrastructure in Nepal. And the snowball effect of having project delays is massive in terms of development. So we have to address that. And on the regulation side also, we are working very closely with the government on the policy-based loan, for example, to improve the logistics, to improve green and resilience environment, to improve private sector environment. And we are working very closely with the World Bank on that. We have a very exciting ongoing policy-based loan, which help to improve the taxation, regulation, make things easier for the private sector to invest. Then also, we are also trying to address the issue of climate change with different, I will not go into detail, but we have different activities on the knowledge, on policy, and on the financing also. And also we have to, of course, regulation is something, but what are the mechanisms after? So we are also working with the very exciting initiatives which aim to develop a financing platform, right? And for this financing platform to be able to access to climate finance, but also to develop innovating finance. And I say innovating finance is already there, right? But how we put things into motion, how we are able to capture remittance. The flow of remittance is massive. 20 or 25% of the GDP. We take a little bit of it through financing mechanism, and already it's a lot of money. Carbon credits, UNDP, and the government. So how we put all those possible innovative financing in some instruments, and the instrument we have in mind also is we look at how we unlock local potential, because there is a lot of work to do at the local level, especially on agribusiness. So again, those investment and those initiatives, we really want to take this opportunity now to move it forward, because we feel that momentum is great, right?
Okay, no, that's exciting. Basically, taking those ideas and having a concrete instruments in place that bring together those various strands of work. Another topic, we're here to mark the 60 years of the cooperation between UNDP and Nepal. So I'm curious to hear, and of course we've been working and partnering with all of you in different ways. I would be curious to hear your thoughts on how you feel that the UN, and more specifically UNDP, can add value to the work that you do, to the plans that you have for the next few years and the next few months. Just to say a few words from our side, maybe on what we do and where we plan to expand our work a little bit. We are there in that innovative finance space. Usually we we work with government. For example, we are working with your ministry, Ministry of Finance, and with the Deposit and Credit Guarantee Fund on introducing new models of guarantees that are better fit for SMEs, especially in the agriculture sector. We're also doing this in the insurance sector, working on new products, leveraging digitalization also to help create more trust in that sector and facilitate the claims process, make sure that people take up insurance. I was amazed to see that 90%, I think, of Nepali SMEs don't have any form of insurance, and in a context where we know the risks, I mean, that's really a big gap. We're also working with the Ministry of Finance on a roadmap on thematic bonds. It's something that takes time. It's a journey that takes time. But if Nepal wants to access international financial markets in a big way, Nepal will have to in the medium to long term, and that's also something that needs to be done. So we're here I would say, in that innovation space, and then the idea is that bigger investors, private, public investors like ADB can also take some of these models that are there and then scale that up for bigger impact. And we're also there, of course, in that pipeline development space. We are discussing the demand side, so working on the ground. As a UN agency, we have a presence on the ground, so we have these local partnerships, and that's where we feel we can add value to investors like your institutions. And the last point I have in mind is you mentioned the delivery challenge, because money is there to a large extent in Nepal, and it's a question of delivering. And as Arnaud mentioned, when you don't deliver, you don't get returns on investment, whether it's financial, economic development. It's a loss to the country. So we also help do that in the climate finance space. We have this work on the glacial lake outburst flood, for example, this big new project coming up to help deliver, and at the same time build the capacity of the government to do that in the future. So these are some of the things I can mention of the things we have in mind, but I'm curious to hear how you feel that we should be working with you and adding value to your work. I don't know who wants to go first.
Okay.
Would you like to go first?
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much. You already mentioned about the UNDP's engagement in Nepal. Thanks to UNDP for this kind of long-standing partnership with the government of Nepal. This is really UNDP's engagement is really important in Nepal's development process. So one thing, as you mentioned, UNDP is engaging with this innovative financing, green financing. This is very important, and we are now also engaging in, as you mentioned, the thematic bond issue. What kind of setup should government have to mobilize this kind of thematic bond, and also credit guarantee. This is one of the major issue because SMEs are not getting good access to finance, so we need to improve this DCGF. And we have another project as well where we completely changed this existing credit guarantee mechanism of DCGF. So thanks to UNDP for joining us with this reform in the DCGF. And other issues, capacity building issue is very much important. When you talk about the governance, of course, UNDP support will be very much helpful to digitalize the process. Basically, this time governance, when we talk about governance, we are talking about digitalization. So digitalization can reduce the process, can make the system more transparent, more responsive. So we want to have more engagement in digitalization process.
In addition to him, as you already mentioned about the upstream and downstream, because UNDP is always there for Nepal's development finance ecosystem, I want to say, and leading or participation on different instruments like thematic bond or that other bond, sovereign bond, that was very much important for the country like Nepal, right? Even we came out with one instrument, that is green bond. So it was there. So this is kind of, you are creating this ecosystem here in Nepal. So UNDP has a very critical and unique role, and that's for the upstream policy and for system strengthening. So UNDP is doing that. Even I want to just add on, we also want to be a part of this GREF type of platform, because that's a kind of yes. So we as a NIFRA, we can be a partner for that. So it's a kind of ecosystem we are creating. All of us are here. So this is also the very important role that UNDP can bring us together, right?
I fully agree. I mean, this is one of the key strengths of UNDP, the coordination. We all have our niche actually of intervention, but how we again create the synergy, how we collaborate. I think in Nepal, again, this is one of the unique countries where we saw development partner moving together, and really having, a shared agenda to support the government. But we can definitely do more. And on that, UNDP also, you have done so many also very successful projects, bring a lot of knowledge and a lot of technical, value added for, finance, innovative finance and amazing. So how we address all that, and how, again, we put that into motion to very actionable and practical mechanism. So this is where UNDP also have a very good role to play, actually, to put everybody into music, actually. And also, I will say, I think you have a very good local footprints actually, at the local government. What I have seen, on the local government you have intervened, they speak highly about the UNDP because you are the very add value large level. So sometimes, like for example, ADB, we go at the local level, but we don't have the same, that you can have sometimes. So how we can work together to leverage this knowledge and these local footprints to provide finance to people who don't have access, right? And this is also the purpose of the Green and Resilient Financing Facility you mentioned. So how we work together into that direction.
Thank you. I think we need to wrap up. I will not try to summarize everything, but for me, just a few main ideas that I take from our discussion. So one is that in this financing landscape, it's of course about bringing in more financing to Nepal, but it's also about harnessing the finance and the capacities that are already there. And you started, Dhaniram, so with this point on delivering and execution and addressing the bottlenecks in execution. So it's the combination of those two things that need to be there for Nepal to really thrive in the future. The other main point that I take is that there's a need for a combination of legal, regulatory reforms, new instruments. I think we all highlighted the fact that now it's about really putting things together in a concrete way and having those channels and those instruments that will take the financing where it needs to be. And that includes a better, let's say, coordination and concrete cooperation between the private sector and the public sector in Nepal, of course, with technical support from Nepal's international development partners. And then we also discussed all those risks. So the need to really de-risk investments, and that's where public finance, concessional finance can help, but also well-designed, let's say, risk financing instrument, which in the context of Nepal, with the vulnerability profile of Nepal, are really, really, really crucial. And then we ended with a discussion on the potential role of the UN and UNDP. So that's homework for me and my colleagues over the next few months. But I think it really resonates with what we've been doing and what we have in mind, the convening role of the UN. We are an impartial partner. Nepal is our member state. So that's a role I think we can play. We are not promoting any specific instruments, so it's probably a comparative advantage that we have, and also continuing to innovate, to develop these models, to leverage our partnerships on the ground, and then come up with scalable, integrated solutions which can be taken to scale by organizations like the organizations that you represent. So really looking forward to this exciting time ahead. I think we all are. And thank you very much again for joining us in this conversation.
Thank you so much.